Greetings truthers. Welcome to 0-Sec Deep State Docs 21. Kevin Murray, with Good Relations Group formerly known as Bell Pottinger of Chime Corporation, hid the AIDS-spreading heroin-creating company Bayer, descended from Nazi war machine Farben. By Good Relations Group, Bayer was disguised as an aspirin company.
Trigger happy and decided to invade Poland, IG Farben was one of Nazi Germany's biggest government contractors. This is where things start to get ugly. Many concentration camps were set up to be strategically close to IG Farben's factories. They relied heavily on slave labor, especially towards the later part of the war, and they even went as far as to build a synthetic rubber plant next.
Kevin Murray and Good Relations Group now work for McDonald's. Ray Kroc started the conveyor belt food industry, exploiting the inexperienced. Skill unneeded. Workers' rights were stripped. Shit jobs emerged from employers caring not for the employed.
Hard work and efficiency that Ray Kroc originally installed into the first McDonald's. With over 30,000 restaurants in over 120 countries, Kroc has truly changed how people eat today.
McDonald's started industrialized junk food. Kroc lobbied Nixon for minimum wage reduction. It's not a certain dollar amount that McDonald's protested, since in every country, even Vietnam where wages now are 52 cents an hour, McDonald's hits the minimum and below.
What do we want? 10 pounds an hour! When do we want it? Now! What do we want?
In 1971, greenwashing a nuclear armament spun off as the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority after poisoning the Irish Sea. Kevin Murray would later use the NDA in a bait-and-switch move. Well, get back to this. McDonald's wage protests go back to the 1970s in cities like San Francisco. In the 70s, a hippie father generation split while feminists joined the workforce. McDonald's lobbied and advertised to paint themselves as acceptable family meal replacement. So they marketed to children, over a decade before Reagan legalized the practice for Hasbro.
He did it! Yeah! If you want something to smile about, just say cheeseburger at McDonald's.
In McDonald land of McDonald's. In McDonald land of McDonald's.
Among McDonald's lobbyists are Miller and Chevalier, specializing in vindicating the last 30 years' Foreign Corrupt Practices Act violations, aka bribing foreign officials. Bribing US officials is not illegal but called free speech. McDonald's lobbyists Manat Phelps and Phillips' influential string-pulling bribery was so well received, dead members get eulogized in congressional minutes.
Its passing is properly memorialized.
Thank you.
Members, before we go to others, are there any others who wish to speak with reference to the passing of Ambassador Manat? Senator Wright.
I think I would concur with everything that Senator De Leon said. I don't know if it's fortunate enough or old enough or both to have been a friend of Chuck Manat's.
Brownstein hired Farben. Shrek lobbied McDonald's minimum wage restrictions on teens to bring about American child exploitation. Kevin Murray's lobbying Good Relation Group is the most dangerous incarnation of human rights catastrophe. Bell Pottinger in the previous Deep State docs. Part of effective lobbying includes buying government officials to buy government officials.
That there are many different ways that you can do that. You can do it through campaign donations. Another way you can do it is by offering jobs to staff members or to congressmen after they leave office.
McDonald's destroys communities globally. In 1985, militant Mexicans tried to stop the McDonald's invasion. Meanwhile, Kevin Murray finished spinning bullshit tabloid-style yarns and started lying for the elite with Bayer and the UK nuclear industry. In 1988, the Danes boycotted McDonald's for 8 months and ended up with what equates to $21 an hour. Kevin Murray took over PR. That would prove the last effective protest. In the 90s, McDonald's squashed union efforts in Russia, Canada, and Indonesia. McDonald's backer State Street passed legislation allowing computer algorithms to affect the market, by which they have violated market rules considerably. By 88 Kevin Murray was working in Bear and UK government nuclear program. Acting at that time through Bell Pottinger, he used government contacts to transform the image of the nuclear catastrophe that is BNFL. But it was with the British Airways project in '96 that defined him. He was unable to hide British Airways employee prejudice, and from that point on he decided he would never fail in burying corporate stench again.
All the Nigerians are going to be there like, give me Coca-Cola, give me beef. Why you have no beef left? I want beef. And I'm just going to be there like, sorry, we've run out of beef. All the Nigerians, they're all going to be there asking for upgrades because they haven't got enough leg room because all their BBCs are in their way. Big like there swinging from side to side.
McDonald's is a real estate machine. Except for the pockets of indigenous, the US has little land-born culture. But for the rest of the world, the crushing mini-malls and McDonald's centerpieces are seen as great imperialistic destruction.
United States. And so many times I went to United States since 2 years, and a lot of farmers agree with us, and consumers and citizens from United States. So this is a global fight from people from all over the world.
And those protests have been steamrolled globally.
They don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese?
Oh man, they got the metric system. They wouldn't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is.
And what do they call it?
They call it the Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
What do they call a Big Mac?
Big Mac's a Big Mac, but they call it Le Big Mac.
Le Big Mac.
Back to Kevin Murray. For Chime Communications Bell Pottinger as PR for British nuclear fuels, he transformed them to the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority with an endless government slush fund. BNFL continued its reckless nuclear activity but with the government's invisibility cloak. Happy Meal toys were made with Chinese children imprisoned with 16-hour working days. In 2000 protests began, but it was 5 years before Chinese unions were allowed to form. By then McDonald's shifted their toy operation to lesser seen exploited Vietnamese. And the Chinese unions are no security.
This independent union in Tiananmen Square, I promised to people I am the spokesperson of this organization. I'm responsible. If the police is running after me, I will not run away. I'm ready to go to prison if needed, even ready to be executed. About 2 weeks after that,
Nestle's child slavery was also whitewashed by Kevin Murray's Good Relations Group.
Seen in the Ivory Coast, children hack at pods of cocoa for the chocolate companies.
Bell Pottinger of Chime Communication, which became Good Relations Group, created internet counter media to discredit negative press for sponsoring companies. Advertising for McDonald's takes a certain disconnect.
How do you do it? What's your secret?
And Kobe, of whom some think dodged rape prosecution with his skill at basketball.
Hey, if we win, we get to go to McDonald's. So don't play.
Directing the State Street Company backing McDonald's, Dame Amelia Fawcett, friend of Kevin Murray's, calls to older days of British imperialism, attracting title commander from Her Majesty the Queen. Animal cruelty of #1 chicken processor KFC is known. But McDonald's also mutilates and boils alive chickens and hits a close second. Yum Corporation.
Farmers contract to grow chicken for us. There are currently no chickens on the farm. TNM Farm did not immediately respond to the footage. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Christelle Coumouet.
Yum Corporation's #1 animal cruelty chicken torture is also backed by Kevin Murray's Good Relations Group. McDonald's #1 in a cruel cow processing. McDonald's share controlled equally spreading Chipotle pretends to be the good guys.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
The rainforest is destroyed for gassy methane ozone-eating cows. There's not enough farmland to feed our existing population in this cowspiracy.
The leading destruction of the environment is actually not fossil fuels. It's actually raising animals for food, where it's across the board, not only leading cause or a leading cause of climate change, it's also the leading cause of water pollution, water consumption, ocean dead zones, rainforest destruction, land use. The list goes on and on and on, all for just one single topic, which is raising animals for food.
Good Relations Group covers for Unilever that makes Dove, Palmolive, Suave, and Axe. Their animal experimentation looks less like an efficient Nazi genocide machine and a bit more like torture for its own sake, like enhanced interrogations. State Street Corporation, directed by Dame Amelia Fawcett, has always been a heavy investor in McDonald's, helping them take the world. She also, as Morgan Stanley vice president and COO, ran shady investment schemes. Fawcett then took over Guardian Group Media, which is why The Guardian is propaganda and no longer the bold publication which carried Snowden's leaks. Another State Street owner is James M. Morgan, behind Timberland's rainforest destruction, a McDonald's-related market. Boston Market is a McDonald's outlet that repeatedly crashed. In 2004, an athlete took to documenting eating a month of McDonald's.
In only 30 days of eating nothing but McDonald's, I gained 24.5 pounds. My liver turned to fat, and my cholesterol shot up 65 points. My body fat percentage went from 11 to 18%, still below the national average of 22% for men and 30% for women. I nearly doubled my risk of coronary heart disease, making myself twice as likely to have heart failure. I felt depressed and exhausted most of the time, my mood swung on a dime, and my sex life was non-existent. I craved this food more and more when I ate it, and got massive headaches when I didn't. In my final blood test, many of my body functions showed signs of improvement, but the doctors were less than optimistic.
The spread of heart disease means little to McDonald's executive Jeffrey B. Kindler, who as CEO of Pfizer oversaw the creation of genetically modified AIDS which broke containment. Concurrently, BNFL's makeover into the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority meant they could bleed taxpayers 3 times their waste costs from destroyed plants like Magnox, allowing for considerable embezzlement inside nuclear projects. Running under the name Bell Pottinger, Kevin Murray ran surveillance to control government figures in oversight positions to the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. By April 2005, BNFL's officially transferred UK assets to the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. The NDA's new senior executives were the old nuclear industry senior figures, including BNFL. After busting the slave farm industry of Yum Corporation in 2005, Immokalee workers turned attention to McDonald's, guilty of the same crimes. But with PR and lobbying, McDonald's farmer exploitation was buried. Already backing McDonald's and KFC's animal cruelty, the Good Relations Group covered up animal cruelty practices for the Meat and Livestock Commission. By 2008, Good Relations Group was so entrenched in parliamentary procedure they basically scripted the parliamentary conversations on the nuclear programs of the rebranded British nuclear fuels known as the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. The ironically named Nuclear Decommissioning Authority took to actively promoting a new generation of nuclear power plant. These nuclear slumlords run dilapidating reactors, costing taxpayers and destroying the environment. The NDA is part of Sellafield, the worst nuclear slum in Europe. McDonald's backing State Street Company in 2009 was found committing currency fraud. Dame Amelia Fawcett conducting State Street in fraud and McDonald's investments is a Sullivan and Cromwell lawyer in court for the dreaded Council on Foreign Relation, known before the 1900s as the Society of the Elite.
There does exist, and has existed for a generation, an international Anglophile network which operates, to some extent, in the way the radical right believes the communist act. In fact, this network, which we may identify as the Round Table groups, comparable to the CFR in the USA, has no aversion to cooperating with the communists, or any other groups, and frequently does so. I was permitted for 2 years, in the early 1960s, to examine its papers and secret records.
The invisible government, a tangled skein of organizations centered on the Council on Foreign Relations.
Fuckery is nothing to McDonald's executives like Midas CEO Alan Feldman sued by California State for bait and switch. Bait and switch, like promising cheap tire rotation then tacking $2,000 onto the bill. McDonald's backing State Street cares just as little for their employees, firing 5% of its workforce in 2010 and cutting the remaining salaries by 10%. Good Relations Group at that time, called BPP Communications, provided false advertising and for Big Pharma false research.
You will be surprised to know that 2/3 of research published in the Lancet, the NEJM, the Annals of Internal Medicine, or JAMA is drug company sponsored.
Good Relations Group then took to hiding tax evasion for Vodafone.
Okay, so this looks like the limit of the presence here. On the letterbox, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 24 companies. One of them is Chesant Overseas LLP, Zug branch.
The McDonald's backing State Street company also screwed employees, making it mandatory since March 2011 to work over 40 hours. In 2012, McDonald's backing State Street corporatists chair and CEO Jay Hooley were shouted down by protesters for outsourcing. Shortly thereafter, American rallies caught fire from fast food forward.
I'm tired of being a slave to this minimum wage. When they say $7.25 is our living wage, I'ma let you know right now that I'm more of age. I need real money, not allowance, okay? So please come and just rock with me and make sure that you all come to the top with me. I'm tired of serving so many burgers and all of these fries, and then when I ask for my raise, I'm always denied.
Meanwhile, it was found that McDonald's backing State Street company was behind many of the quasi-junk bond market of mortgage-backed securities that led to the financial crash of 2008. Since 2013, strikes have erupted across America again.
Goodman, this week a national strike for a living wage and the right to unionize in the fast food and retail sectors has spread across 7 cities. Hundreds of workers have walked off the job yesterday in Milwaukee, before that in Chicago and St. Louis and Kansas City, Detroit, Flint, Michigan, as well as here in New York City.
The fight for $15 an hour, workers across the country staging day-long protests calling for a higher minimum wage. And this time, it's more than a food fight. It's fast food employees along with home care, airport, other low-wage workers.
Shirking payment, McDonald's charged their workers for the luxury of minimum wage.
You see, this is a classic example of monopoly, basically. You see, these debit cards that McDonald's uses is great for McDonald's bottom line, because McDonald's is going to save a lot of money in payroll costs and cutting checks and stuff like that by just letting a third party, a debit card, which is owned by a bank, come in and then start collecting, employee compensation and then issuing it to them. However, there's a lot of fees that the banks that issue these debit cards are going to make money on. And not giving employees a choice is just wrong, because you're basically stealing from employees that are already making only minimum wage. So now they're going to be making less than minimum wage after this.
The majority of McDonald's employees are on food stamps and Medicaid, subsidized by taxpayers for the bloated rich executives and board.
For this, they suggest getting food stamps and Medicaid, government-provided benefits. Listen to
wage slavery means nothing to McDonald's board director Richard H. Lenny, who has been the CEO of Hershey, overseeing their child slavery operations. In redacted documents we find that McDonald's backing State Street Corporation vastly undervalues itself for tax breaks. But they have $20 trillion, which is interesting considering it's based on many illegal monetary activities, and the most they have been fined is under $65 million. To put that in perspective, let's consider you make $20,000 on a drug deal, then the cops come and fine you 65 cents. Would that be a deterrent? That equivalent of 65 cents was for defrauding clients out of billions of dollars.
On Wednesday, a former State Street Corp executive became the second person to plead guilty to participating in what U.S. prosecutors say was a scheme to defraud 6 clients through secret commissions on billions of dollars of trades.
Having served on the board of McDonald's is Donald Archio, chairman of Allen & Company. Allen & Company has a stake in all major technology platforms and with the intelligence agencies. And Allen & Company operate as the Bilderbergs of technocracy.
How do you know you found a super secret conference full of millionaires and billionaires in the middle of scenic Idaho? Well, you just count the private jets. This is Sun Valley, Idaho, population 1,400. But every July, the net worth of this town gets a major boost when the Allen & Company Conference, also known as Summer Camp for Billionaires, is in session.
Dubbed strongest Wall Street force, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink gets $20 million a year from McDonald's. BlackRock is corrupt, but executives from there have urged McDonald's to pay fair wages, if not just for better PR.
Pays its workers. Morris Pearl, a former managing director at BlackRock, published an open letter to McDonald's CEO Steve Easterbrook on Monday, urging him to improve employees' pay.
BlackRock is the largest shadow bank and therefore shadow government in America. McDonald's is in deep with BlackRock and Vanguard behind the Dakota Pipeline and State Street Corporation. McDonald's gives copious payouts and pay increases to shareholders and executives alike, while exploiting the humans working the industrialized mechanisms of fast food. Ray Kroc's dreams of reducing the minimum wage today seem possible.
People are arguing that it should be $15, $7.25. Historically, it's at record lows for this country. But according to Donald Trump, not low enough. Wait, now, part of what he said...
Meanwhile, McDonald's backing State Street Corporation pays black women in particular a fraction of what the same work would earn a white man. Instead of considering equal pay for equal work, they put up office art of a little girl on Wall Street and patted themselves on the back. A corporatist feminism that violates its own pretense. The industrialization of humans and animals for elite detached sociopaths have to be recognized and stopped. Dig into the docs link under the video for links, names and numbers.
You're poisoned. You're poisoned by chemicals they put in your food, water, medicine, and the very air that you breathe. The truth eludes most, because most aren't searching for it. And why should they? After the first few years of existence, we're already told what our world is, what it looks like, how it was made, and how it works. And why ask who we are? We're told that we're all evolved monkeys on a spinning ball, hurtling through infinite space at hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. Nothing more than a speck on a grain of sand in a constantly expanding universe that was born out of a cosmic explosion of nothing. And why believe in God? They claim to be men of God, sure, using his name to endear themselves, but a giant cosmic fart is what they tell you your God is. But there's a glitch in their finely tuned indoctrination. A small percentage who reject the programming. They are haunted day and night by a voice within, compelling them to look beyond the world that they see, that pleads with them to take a second look. This is when a choice is made. The choice to silence that voice by burying it with doubt and fear, or the choice to explode out of yourself and declare your first 3 words of truth. I know nothing. These 3 words are the hammer that will shatter the walls of your prison of illusions. Because in the realization that you know nothing, you are now ready to know something.
You are the resistance. Expect us.